And where in the world do you think you're going?
I heard a voice ask as I tried to open the door. Oh no, my plan had failed before he could even begin.
Don't tell me you're disobeying us and trying to sneak off to that party, even after we've warned you not to.
My parents stood on the staircase and glared at me. I was trying to sneak off to a friend's birthday party, but…
Of course she was trying to sneak out. What other reason could she have?
For Christ's sake, Angela, it was a rhetorical question.
My dad explained, rolling his eyes.
Whatever.
I opened the door and started leaving, drawing their attention back to me. If you guys don't mind, I'll be leaving first, I said, bowing down in true Korean style as I tried to confuse them and escape to the party. My mom shook her head.
Back to your room right this moment.
I sighed and started walking towards my room.
And young woman?
My mom called, stopping me in my tracks. I turned to look at her.
You're grounded.
It doesn't matter, Mom. I never go anywhere, so I might as well have been born grounded. I banged the door with all my might as I entered my room. Hi, I'm Maria, and I have crazy parents. They're protective to a point where it's scary. They never allow me to go anywhere that isn't school. It wasn't as terrible as it should have been anyway, mainly because of Marco, my lovely boyfriend. He made me dream of coming to school every day. Marco and I hadn't always been friends. Our classmates used to tease him because of his feminine features, and I'm ashamed to say I used to be one of the lead teasers, until I found him crying in the bathroom one day. Marco? He looked up at me angrily.
What do you want?
Why are you crying?
Why do you care? Isn't this what you want?
What?
For me to hate myself?
What? No, you're pretty, handsome. He stood up and started leaving angrily. Hey, stop! I chased after him. I wasn't teasing you again, I promise.
Then what was that?
Look, you may not look like the average guy, but you look great, always. Better than most guys and girls even. Your facial, feminine features make you look lovely.
So why do you and the others tease me every day?
Maybe they're just jealous. We both laughed. A few months after our encounter in the bathroom, we started dating, and Marco made school the best thing that ever happened to me. Like and subscribe if you want to have a partner who can make life worth living, even when you feel like giving up. Our relationship was going great until somehow my parents found out about it.
We are very disappointed in you.
My dad said, shaking his head.
After everything we've done for you, you still went ahead to blatantly disobey us and drag our family name in the mud.
What? Are you guys saying this just because I'm in a relationship? I asked, unbelief written all over my face.
Just.
My dad patted my mom's shoulder a few times, calming her down.
We refuse to sit quietly and watch you destroy your future just because you want to date some boy. We are moving this week.
What? And that was it. Next thing, I was on a plane with my parents, traveling halfway across the country. My parents were changing cities just because they didn't want me to date. That was how crazy they were. I was enrolled in an all-girls school that was considered safe by my parents. It was sad and lonely, but it got better over time and I was able to make a few friends. About a year later, a very peculiar new girl joined our school. She was a loner and didn't want to socialize, but the girls in school had a welcoming tradition of flocking around new enrollees until they knew every single thing about you. This new kid gave information sparingly, making her a mystery, but this didn't make the girls stop bothering her. If anything, it intrigued them and made them want to know her more. One day, I found the new girl crying in the bathroom and a heavy wind of déjà vu hit me. I remembered Marco and felt really sad. I sat beside her and she immediately jumped up, trying to run away, but I was able to catch her in time.
What do you want?
I couldn't explain it, but somehow, that question made my heart beat rapidly. What's your name, new girl?
Jean.
Janae? I laughed. Are you sure? It took you quite a while to remember your own name. Janae laughed too.
Well, you made me nervous, so my head went blank for a few seconds.
We laughed together. I'm sorry if I made you nervous or uncomfortable. That wasn't my intention. And I'm sorry about the girls here. They're all crazy like that. Keep ignoring them and just give it some time. They'll get tired and stop bothering you.
Looks like you're talking from experience.
I am. Janae smiled widely, making my heart beat faster once again.
Is everything all right? Did I say something wrong?
Absolutely not. Your smile just reminds me of someone.
Who?
My ex-boyfriend, Marco.
Oh, what happened between you two?
My parents happened. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about it. I stood up. I'll be leaving now. I quickly left before Janae could object. Over time, Janae and I became good friends, but she never stopped being weird or secretive. She always managed to pry information from me, and I was happy to share, but when I asked her about herself, she simply shunned me. It was so annoying. My parents traveled one day, and I was so bored. After trying to watch a movie and still ending up bored, I decided to pay Janae a visit. I got her address from the principal's daughter and snuck in her room window, wanting to give her the shock of an eternity. I hid in the shadows and carefully waited for the running water to cease and for Janae to leave the bathroom so I could pounce on her and shock her. But once the doors of the bathroom flung open, I ended up being the one who received the shock of an eternity. Ah! I screamed as I ran straight for the window, jumped up and bolted. Janae spotted me and started chasing me, but I ran like my life depended on it, so she couldn't catch up to me. Janae tried to talk to me in school, but I always avoided her. I never gave her the chance to explain what I saw that day to me until she cornered me one evening on my way home from school. Hey, get out of my way right now!
Or else what?
I'll call the cops on you and report you as a stalker. I'll get a restraining order on you and I'm sure you'll go to prison. Janae bowed down her head in defeat.
I'm not stalking you, Maria. This is a huge coincidence.
Yeah, sure. Following me halfway around the country, pretending to be a girl just so you could attend the same school with me, getting close to me and all that? Don't you think these are psychotic behaviors, Marco? I'm sure you must have figured out what I saw in Janae's house that fateful day. I was still hiding in the shadows when Janae came out of the shower, only in boxers. She was drying her hair, and once I saw up close, I realized that Janae was definitely not a girl. Janae was just Marco, pretending to be a girl.
I didn't know you attended here. Heck, I didn't even know what city you traveled to. Look, I can explain everything. Just follow me home, or let's go to a private cafe to talk if you don't want to come home with me. I'll clear things up, I promise.
I agreed to follow Marco to his house to talk, but I told him I forgot something in my locker, went back to school and stuck a note in my locker saying, "If anything happens to me, Janae did it. She's actually a boy and her name is Marco." I also sent a scheduled text message to my parents with a note and my location. It would be sent automatically in 3 hours if I couldn't stop or postpone it. After that, I followed Marco home. At Marco's home, he explained that he and his family were under witness protection and nobody could know they were really here.
After you disappeared from school without any explanation, I became depressed and people started teasing me again. It was a very dark time in my life. After a few months, though, a new kid joined the school, and he was just like me. No, his features were much more prominent. As a result of this, everyone stopped teasing me and focused solely on him. I felt bad for him, so I befriended him and tried to protect him.
That's very noble of you, Marco.
Thanks. I went to visit him one night and had to hide when his father entered his room. I snuck out when his father wasn't looking and wandered the halls of the big house trying to find an exit. I got lost and found myself in his father's office, where I found documents revealing that his father was a government minister who'd been stealing truckloads of money from the government and killing whoever got in his way. I took the documents and ran out of the house. That was the beginning of my troubles.
Marco explained that he tried to report to the police but realized they were on the minister's payroll. The cops tried to seize the documents for him, but he was able to escape and run home, where he was immediately kidnapped alongside his parents. Fortunately, the CIA caught the kidnappers and released him and his family, fleeing with them to an unknown location. That was how he found himself in a new city, pretending to be a girl in an all-girls school.
I recognized you immediately, but I couldn't tell you the truth because I didn't want to put you in danger too. I tried my best to avoid you until you found me crying in the bathroom and comforted me just like old times. I couldn't avoid you anymore after that day because I still loved you, but I just couldn't tell you the truth.
No wonder I kept feeling weird that day. I guess my heart knew what my brain couldn't figure out at the time. You're a great actor, Marco.
If I may say so myself.
We both laughed. I promised to keep your secret. He smiled.
I know you will. Thank you, Maria. I love you.
I love you too. Marco and I started dating again, and it was even more exciting now because my parents were none the wiser that I was back with the reason why they moved halfway across the country. It was great, but our happiness was about to be cut short. During swimming practice one day, our nonchalant swimming teacher mistakenly switched our energy drinks before the swimming lesson and gave Marco a drink that made him drowsy instead of energizing him. Weak and confused, Marco, thinking he was a guy, went into the bathroom meant for male security guards alone, and this was how it was discovered that he was actually a guy. His secret was out, and now he had to tell the whole school the truth. The school staff were enraged at first and wanted to expel him immediately. But I convinced them that if they were going to expel him, they should just as well kill him because withdrawing him from school would mean putting his and his family's lives at risk. I explained the danger Marco was in, the fact that he was under witness protection, and why he had to pretend to be a girl. They felt bad for him and decided to let him stay. Unfortunately, once my boy-hungry female classmates discovered that there was a real guy amongst them, they went mad and started fighting over him. They didn't even care that he was already in a relationship with me. All they wanted was for Marco to leave me and date them. Most of these girls had never had a male friend before, so they went bonkers. What hurt me the most was that Marco embraced the attention and love from our classmates because he wasn't used to it. He even tried to date some of the girls in secret. Once I discovered this, I quickly called off the relationship, but Marco didn't let me go. He begged for forgiveness and a second chance, but I wasn't sure I was ready to give my heart back to him. After a few months, I noticed that he really had changed and had started avoiding all the girls in school once again, so I decided to give him a second chance and our relationship grew stronger. One day, a few strange and scary-looking men came to our school with Marco's pictures.
We're looking for this boy. Have you seen him?
We hid Marco far away and explained to the strange men that this was a girls' school. So it was confusing why they were searching for a guy in an all-girls school. The men were embarrassed.
This young man is a terrorist, and if you harbor him, you become a terrorist too. This is a matter of national security. If you ever spot him anywhere, please call this number immediately.
One of the men said while showing the card to all the students. Months passed and the CIA were finally able to build a case against the minister. Marco testified and showed the documents to the court. The minister was convinced and Marco and his family were finally able to live normal lives once again. We held a farewell party for Marco and we all cried as he left. He promised to visit often, but our principal assured him that it was an all-girls school, so boys weren't allowed, making us all burst into laughter.
I'm just kidding, this is your home. Visit anytime,
she said while hugging Marco. Marco convinced his parents to stay in the city and they enrolled him in a mixed school, not too far from my own. We continued dating throughout our time in high school and even after that. My parents only found out years later when I told them that I was marrying him.
$25 after I cleaned the garage and the attic? Mom, how am I supposed to hang at the mall with $25? A 15-year-old me looked at the money skeptically. Mom, come on, it's not that you can't afford it. Look at Fifi, she has a $25,000 diamond necklace around her neck. Surely your son deserves more. Mark my words, one day you'll regret how you treated me. I stormed off. I wish that Mom would pay for how she treated me. I didn't realize that my wish would actually come true. Later that afternoon at the mall, Harry, my best friend, looked at me.
I can't believe after you did all that work, she only gave you $25. Why don't you get a job at GrillNet? They hire 15-year-olds. The only thing is, you'll need to get your mom's permission.
After the mall, we headed to GrillNet for the permission slip. That night, I asked Mom about the job, and she said she'd sign the permission slip. Really? I couldn't believe my ears. I ran for the slip and handed it to Mom before she changed her mind. The next day after school, I went to GrillNet and spoke with the supervisor, Mr. Foster. After the interview, Mr. Foster told me I could start the next day. I bounced into work the next day excited that I'd finally have access to money that wasn't Mom's. I took orders and delivered them with a smile on my face. I received tips, and I felt as though I had finally gained my independence. My shift was almost over when Mom walked in. I stood behind the counter nervously. Mom never, and I mean never, entered an establishment like GrillNet. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to GrillNet. Can I get your order?
Can I get a number 4 and a number 9?
That'll be $23.50, ma'am. I smiled. Mom paid, and I watched as she sat daintily at one of the booths. I prepared Mom's meals and delivered them with a smile. Her first complaint was the fries were too cold. Then, the meat was uncooked. She even opened her burger and said there was a fly wedged in her lettuce.
This food is unacceptable. I'd like to speak to the supervisor,
Mom said loudly, and a few staff and customers looked in our direction. Mr. Foster was called, and I stood there as Mom complained about everything. The service, the food, and she even said my shirt was tucked in too tight. Mr. Foster turned to me and said he couldn't keep me on the job, and he hoped I got something more suitable to my skills. Mom smiled smugly and walked out the door. As I stood there, I realized there was nothing I could do about Mom controlling my life and how I got money. Over the next few years, I worked my butt off to get into a college as far away from home as possible. When I got accepted into SFGC, I showed Mom the admissions letter. I got a parietal scholarship and asked Mom if she'd pay the rest.
You do realize you're 18, right? This means I am not obligated to pay anything for you. However, if you do go to a college near home and live at home, I'll pay your full tuition.
That night, I sat on my bed and wondered how I was going to pay tuition without Mom's help. After breakfast the next day, Mrs. Dolly called me to the kitchen.
So, have you decided what you're going to do for tuition?
I'll get a job. Many college students do it. If they can do it, so can I. Mrs. Dolly walked to the kitchen drawer, opened it, and handed me an envelope.
Let's make a deal. You focus on your education and maintain a 3.5 GPA, and when you get your first real paying job, you can pay me back.
I opened the envelope, and there was the other half of my first year of tuition. I hugged Mrs. Dolly and told her that I wouldn't let her down. When I left home for college, I severed all interaction with Mom. Mrs. Dolly and I chatted every day, and she even sent me money every month. Time flew, and during my last year at college, Mrs. Dolly called me flustered.
Miles, you need to come home. It's your mom. I'll explain everything when you get home.
Immediately, I spoke with the dean, and he told me to keep him posted in case I needed to defer any of my classes. Mrs. Dolly refused to tell me what happened to Mom over the phone, and even though Mom and I never got along, I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. Mom, Mrs. Dolly! I entered the front door and called out. No one answered. I dropped my luggage in my bedroom and went in search of Mom. I found her in the office. I knocked lightly on the door. Hey, Mom.
What are you doing here?
Mom didn't look up from the document she was writing on. I came to see you. Are you feeling okay? I walked closer to her.
I'm fine. I need to get work done. Please, get out.
Without saying another word, I walked out of the office and went in search of Mrs. Dolly and found her in the kitchen.
Oh, Miles, you're home.
She ran and wrapped her arms around me. Mrs. Dolly, what's going on? Mrs. Dolly looked at me and closed the kitchen door before she responded.
I'm worried about Mrs. Fenton.
Mrs. Dolly went on to tell me that Mom had some bizarre experiences, which started about a month ago. She said it started with Mom forgetting where she placed things. Then it was seeing and hearing things that weren't there, including Fifi's bark. Do you think Mom is having a breakdown because of Fifi's death? Fifi passed away a month ago.
Do you think they're related?
I think they are. Let's discuss it further tomorrow. I had a long drive. I'm bushed. I went to my bedroom and left Mrs. Molly in the kitchen. My heart jumped out of my chest, and I was startled out of my sleep. Mom! Half asleep, I stumbled towards Mom's room, yanked open the door, and ran in. Mom screamed frantically with the sheets over her head. A few seconds later, Mrs. Dolly entered the room. I went over to Mom and slowly moved the sheets from her face. It was pale. Mom, what's the matter?
Over there, by the window.
Mom pointed shakily. I looked across by the window and back at Mom. Mom, there isn't anything there.
There was someone there!
She screamed. I walked towards the curtain and pulled it back, but no one was there. I checked under Mom's bed and even her closets. Still, no sign of the mysterious man. I gently pulled Mrs. Dolly to the side. Is there anything you can get to calm her so she can sleep? Mrs. Dolly nodded and hustled downstairs. She returned a few minutes later with a cup of chamomile tea. Mom took the tea and drank it slowly. I told Mrs. Dolly I'd stay with Mom until she fell asleep. With a worried look on her face, Mrs. Dolly left the room. The next morning, I felt someone shake me gently.
Come down for breakfast. Let Mrs. Fenton sleep in.
I followed Mrs. Dolly to the kitchen where I sat by the table, and she placed a cup of tea in front of me with a pile of pancakes.
Miles, what are we going to do?
I can't stay here indefinitely. I have to go back to school. How about we hire a nurse? That way you aren't burdened with the extra work and I can attend college. Later that day, when Mom went out of the house to see about business, Mrs. Dolly and I quickly arranged a few interviews. We chose two sisters, Rose and Daisy. Both had a few years of experience in the field. Once everything was arranged at home, I headed back to school. 2 weeks went by and everything was going great. I thought Mom was getting better, but Mrs. Dolly called me one night and said Mom attacked Rose and she had to be rushed to the hospital where she got stitches on her forehead. I returned home that night. "Mom, we have to get you some help," I begged. "Daisy gave me the name of a doctor and he's coming to the house this afternoon." Mom refused to talk to me and she said she wanted her own doctor, but Mrs. Ramdas was on her honeymoon and wouldn't be back in 2 months. At 3 p.m. sharp, Dr. Osborne knocked on the door. Mrs. Dolly and Mom spoke with him while I waited outside anxiously for over an hour.
Mr. Fenton, can I have a word with you?
Dr. Osborne peeked out from the office. I walked into the office and sat on the empty chair.
Mr. Fenton, after speaking with Mrs. Fenton and Mrs. Dolly, I think the best way forward is to put Mrs. Fenton in a home where she can receive proper care with a wide range of fully experienced staff. I do believe that she is currently suffering from a state of depression which can bring about hallucinations due to high anxiety. I've written up some sedatives for Mrs. Fenton to help her sleep at night.
Dr. Osborne handed me the prescription.
I am not leaving my home to go into any home. This is my home.
I turned to Mom. "Mom, it's okay. I'll take care of you." I thanked him and walked him to the front door. While I took care of Mom, Mrs. Dolly worked on getting my lecturers to allow me to do classes online, for which I was extremely grateful. But after about 6 weeks of Mrs. Dolly and I taking care of Mom, she didn't seem to get any better. I needed to get some advice from the big guns. I spoke with Mom's lawyer, Mr. Bain, who was the family lawyer. He agreed that due to her health, she should be in a place where she could get the best care. Mom walked into the living room.
What are you doing here, Mr. Bain? We didn't have a meeting today.
Actually, Miles here needed some legal advice.
Miles, I already told you that I'm not leaving my house. I don't care how cuckoo you or anyone else thinks I am.
Suddenly, Mom picked up a chair and threw it at me. I ducked as the chair crashed against a wall. I ran out of the room while Mr. Bain held Mom back from rushing outside to attack me. When Mom finally calmed down, Mr. Bain came out of the living room and he told me he'd give me a call tomorrow. Mrs. Dolly walked him to the door while I locked myself in my room away from any more of Mom's tantrums. After a few more episodes in the next 2 weeks, Mr. Bain and I decided to take legal action. Everyone who was in close proximity to Mom over the past 6 months testified in a court of law in front of a judge.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Fenton, but given all the information presented in this case, I have no choice but to give your son legal rights to you and your estate until you're able to take care of them once more. You can go to a senior citizen's home or you can go to a mental institution.
After, Mom decided to go to the senior citizen's home. And over the next few days, Mrs. Dolly and I did some research online of the finest senior homes in the country, until we found the perfect one for Mom.
Welcome to Cadine's retirement home. I'm Cadine Francois, the head nurse of this facility.
Cadine gave Mom, Mrs. Dolly, and me a tour of the home before Mom was shown her quarters. Mrs. Dolly told Mom she'd visit her every weekend, and she left the room.
I'll leave you two to say goodbye.
Kadim smiled and walked out of the room. I hugged her and whispered in her ear, "I told you, one day you'll regret the way you treated me. Goodbye, Mother." I pulled away from Mom's embrace and smiled smugly as Mom's eyes widened. I exited her room. I gave Mrs. Dolly a month's vacation and a $100,000 bonus. I told her it was for everything she ever did for me as a child, and she earned it. I also felt guilty for what I had put her through over the past months. You see, it wasn't by chance that things occurred as they did. Fifi was the only natural event that occurred, and my friends and I planned around it. Remember my childhood bestie, Harry? Well, he's doing a major in tech and a minor in robotics at college, and this gave him the perfect time to practice his skills. We wired the entire house with cameras, speakers, and projectors that created illusions, so all those sounds and things Mom was seeing was all Harry. Daisy and Rose were actual college friends of mine who needed some cash to plan their wedding after college. But we still needed someone to give paperwork that looked legit to the court, and that's where Mom's lawyer came in, Mr. Bain. I told Mr. Bain that once he helped us and things worked out, I'd pay him $10 million for his time. He jumped at the chance, since Mom had been underpaying him since Dad died. Everybody got what they wanted, and I thought that my story ended there. I mean, what else could a guy my age need? One afternoon, while I searched through Mom's documents, I found one that stated Mrs. Dolly was my real mother. I couldn't believe it. Was this the reason Mom treated me horribly all those years? Not wanting to spoil Mrs. Dolly's vacation, I waited until she returned to question her about the document.
I was your father's first wife. When he divorced me, he told me that he would take my son away and I'd never see him again. I begged him not to. He said the only way I'd be able to see my son is if I worked for him. But I could never tell you the truth. I was very young when I had you, and I wanted to tell you the truth when you reached 18, but your mother wouldn't allow it, and she threatened to make sure I'd never work in the city or see you again. So I did what I had to do.
I hugged Mrs. Dolly and we cried together. I couldn't believe for all these years I had my own guardian angel. I told Mrs. Dolly that as of today, she'd have nothing to worry about, and I'd take care of her for the rest of her life. Sometimes in life, you have to shift things in your favor, but the best things in life come unexpectedly.
Can you believe that I became a mom at age 12? 12! At age 12, I'm supposed to be obsessed with clothes and makeup, maybe a boy or two, but being a mom wasn't on my to-do list. And yet, here I am. Please watch the rest of this video to find out about my crazy story. You see, at age 12, other children have a mom to take care of them, but I had to take care of my mom. Oh, you thought I had a baby. No, but at age 12, I did have more responsibilities than any 12-year-old should have, like babysitting my mom and taking care of the household. I never knew my dad, so mom and grandma were the ones who took care of me since I was a child. Being an only child, whenever I asked for anything, they just gave it to me. And that included food. Lots of it. Mom and I were on the chubby side, and I was happy that mom didn't force me to exercise and go outside and play like any of my friends. I mean, running outside made me so sweaty and itchy. I preferred to be inside, in the AC, watching TV while I munched on a snack. My world turned upside down when I was about 10 years old. While mom was returning home from the grocery store, she got into a car accident. Mom lived, but the accident caused permanent nerve damage to her left leg. After 10 minutes of standing or walking, mom's leg hurt and she'd have to wear her compression stockings to ease the pain. Over the next few months, mom gained a lot of weight since she couldn't move around as much as she wanted. Then, to make matters worse, later that year, grandma passed away. Mom ate her sadness away. The more she ate, the less she worked, until one day she was fired. Mom signed up for welfare, and at this time she was about 450 pounds, and so began my journey of taking care of my mom at the tender age of 12. I knocked on mom's door and peeked inside. "Morning, Mom. Pancakes and sausages for breakfast."
Thanks, Nikki.
Mom took the tray from my hands. While Mom ate, I got ready for school. After I got dressed, I'd help Mom get dressed, which meant I used a wet cloth and wiped Mom's back and the folds in her legs. Once Mom was dressed, I'd kiss her and head to school. After school, I'd prepare dinner and help Mom with her rag bath before I headed to my bedroom and started my homework. Life changed drastically for me. I lost my friends, my nice clothes became tattered and torn, and many days I'd go to school with only half a sandwich. Mom no longer had the money for snacks. I began eating alone and spending the rest of the lunch break in the bathroom away from the children who made fun of me. On my way home after school one day, I stopped by a mini-mart about 2 blocks in the opposite direction of where I lived. If I couldn't get the snacks from Mom, I'd get them one way or another. I walked around the store for a few minutes and I looked over before stuffing a few snacks in my jacket. As I passed the freezer with drinks, someone called to me.
Hi.
It was a police officer. He held a drink in his hand. "Hi." I passed by quickly, but he held my arm. My heart skipped a few beats.
Is there something you want to tell me?
He raised an eyebrow. I shook my head and attempted to get away.
Open the jacket.
Tears streaming down my face as I opened my jacket and the snacks fell out. "Please, I won't do it again. Please let me go." The officer picked up the snacks from the ground.
Follow me.
He went to the cashier and you wouldn't believe what he did. He paid for the snacks and handed me the bag. The cashier handed him the change and we walked out of the mini-mart together. He opened the back door of the police car that was parked at the front of the mini-mart.
Get in.
Without a word, I hopped into the car. The officer got behind the wheel and asked for my address. A few minutes later, we pulled up to my house. The officer got out and opened the door for me. I looked at him. "Do you really need to walk me to the front door?" He nodded and smiled. As I walked towards the house, I felt as though it was my last walk of freedom. I wasn't sure what the officer would tell Mom or how Mom would react. When we got to the front door, the officer knocked. "Oh, I forgot to tell you, Mom isn't home." The officer ignored me and knocked again. "See? I told you, she's not home." Just then, Mom opened the front door.
Not home, huh?
The officer looked at me before he turned to address Mom.
Patrick Jackson?
Mom smiled.
Kellyanne Guy?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I haven't seen you since high school.
Mom looked in my direction.
What are you doing with my daughter, Nikki?
Officer Jackson told Mom the events that happened at the store. Mom looked at Officer Jackson apologetically.
I'm so sorry that it happened. I blame myself for not being able to provide for her as I should. Please, let me pay you back.
It's okay, Kellyanne. I'm just glad I'm the one who saw her and brought her home. It was nice seeing you. Maybe we can go and grab a coffee sometime.
Mom thanked Officer Jackson again before he left, and Mom closed the door. Mom didn't even look at me. I didn't see Mom for the rest of the evening. I knew what I did was wrong. I wrote Mom a letter to apologize, and I told her that I will never do it again. After writing the letter, I slipped it under Mom's door. Next morning, I knocked on Mom's door and opened it. "Good morning." Mom sat up in bed and patted the space next to her. I walked to the bed and sat next to Mom.
You know what you did was wrong, right?
I nodded. Mom held my hand.
What I did was also wrong. I shouldn't have allowed myself to reach this stage. You are only 12 and I have placed too much responsibility on your shoulders. I'm sorry. Do you forgive me?
I nodded and hugged Mom.
I've decided to do a tube video and reach out for help.
Oh, Mom, I'm so proud of you. Maybe we can do this together. I smiled. That afternoon after school, I helped Mom with her video, uploaded it, and we waited. I checked the comments the next morning. Mom's video had already passed over 500,000 views. I read through the comments. Some were very mean, but most of them encouraged Mom to get help and even post her journey so they could cheer her on. One comment caught my eye. It was from a Dr. Theodore St. Louis. He told Mom to get in contact with him. I ran to Mom's room and showed her the comment. Mom called him excitedly and told him who she was. After speaking to him for a few minutes, Mom hung up and told me that she had an appointment with him this Saturday. He even said he'll meet her at home with the dietitian team. On the day of the appointment, Dr. St. Louis told Mom that she had to lose 200 pounds before she could do the gastric bypass surgery. Together with his team, they came up with a diet plan for Mom and a simple exercise plan where they gave her a small device to attach to her arm, and she must complete 500 steps per day. If Mom completed their request, she'd be eligible for the surgery free of charge. Over the next few weeks, everything was going great. Or so I thought. One afternoon, school let out early because there was a power outage in the area. When I got home, I opened the front door and stepped inside. Right there, on the sofa, was Mom stuffing her face with a pizza. She didn't see me or hear me come in. "Mom, what are you doing?" I was shocked. Mom swallowed quickly and closed the box. "I can't believe you."
Nikki, I can explain.
"Keep your excuses, Mom." I walked out the house and headed to the park. I sat for a few minutes looking at the ducks that swam in the pond when a jogger stepped in front of me. I looked up. It was Officer Jackson.
Hi, Nicole. Is everything okay?
I shook my head and he sat next to me. He listened intently as I told him everything that was happening at home.
Maybe your mom is having a hard time. Just because you're able to keep up with the diet doesn't mean it's easy for your mom.
Officer Jackson and I chatted for a few minutes before he offered me a lift home. We pulled up to the house a few minutes later. Officer Jackson gave me a card with his number on it.
I've got to get to work, but if anything happens, please don't hesitate to call me, okay?
I smiled and nodded. Officer Jackson waved and left. That night, Mom didn't come home out of her room. I sat in front of her door hoping she'd come out. Around 5 a.m., I called Officer Jackson. He said that his shift is over at 6 a.m. and he'll be there as soon as he gets out. I waited by Mom's door until I heard a knock on the door. I ran to open it. "Hi," I said as I swung the door open.
Hi, any luck yet?
Officer Jackson asked as he stepped into the house with a bag of fresh produce. I sighed heavily and shook my head. He squeezed my shoulder softly.
Come on, let's make breakfast. I'm sure she'll be out soon.
Officer Jackson followed me into the kitchen. I showed him Mom's diet book. I helped Officer Jackson prepare breakfast. Officer Jackson plated Mom's breakfast and placed it on the tray. He took out an envelope from the bag he brought and placed it on the tray. He nodded to me. I inhaled deeply as I picked up the tray and walked to Mom's room. "Mom, breakfast is ready," I called out as I stopped in front of her bedroom.
Come in.
I walked into the room. "I'm so sorry about yesterday." Mom held up her arm to stop me. She smiled.
Don't be. I said I want to lose weight and I need to stick to the plan.
I handed Mom the tray. She picked up the envelope and looked at me with a raised eyebrow. She opened it slowly and read the card that was in it. Mom smiled.
Nikki, can you help me get dressed?
I nodded. As soon as Mom got dressed, she ventured into the kitchen where Officer Jackson sat by the table.
Good morning, Patrick. Thank you for breakfast.
That's what friends are for. How's your diet going? Nicole told me...
Nicole!
Mom's face was red with embarrassment.
It's okay, Kelly. I just want to know how I can help.
As Mom and Officer Jackson began to talk, I grabbed my breakfast plate and headed to my room. It was nice seeing Mom interact with someone other than me. After I ate, I placed the plate on my dresser, placed my headphones on, and lay in bed. Mom's breakfast with Officer Jackson became a morning routine, and when we had evenings free, the three of us walked in the park. One afternoon after I heard Officer Jackson ask Mom about my dad.
Well, I dated Nikki's dad in high school, and when I found out I was pregnant, he also got drafted to play pro basketball. I knew if I told him I was pregnant, he'd throw away his career, and I didn't think I'd be able to live with that type of guilt.
Are you saying that Nikki is my daughter?
My jaw dropped. "You're my dad?" I blurted out from where I stood. Mom's and Patrick's heads spun in my direction.
Nikki, I
turned to run away, but Patrick caught my arm.
Don't be too hard on your mother. She was young and afraid and had every right to be. I wish she'd told me sooner, but wishing won't change anything. All we have now is the present and the future. I would love to be a part of your life if you'd let me.
I couldn't believe it. After all these years, I finally knew who my father was. I dove into Patrick's open arms and we both cried. Patrick and Mom dated, and within 2 years, Mom and I lost the weight and she was able to do her gastric surgery. After surgery, it was a long, hard road to healing, and on the days when Mom wanted to give up, Dad and I encouraged her to keep going. On their 3-year anniversary of dating, Patrick proposed to Mom and she said yes. A few months later, Mom and Patrick had a beautiful small wedding. When I was 16, Mom gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. One night, Mom got a call that Patrick got into a terrible accident on the job. Mom called the babysitter, and as soon as she arrived, Mom and I rushed to the hospital.
Mrs. Jackson, your husband has lost a lot of blood and we need a donor.
"I'm his daughter. I'll be his donor." Before Mom could disagree, I was whisked away to the blood bank. After they took my blood, they carried me to a bed and told me to lay down. I closed my eyes and relaxed, but it wasn't long before I heard Mom and the doctor as they whispered by my bedside.
Mrs. Jackson, based on the samples we took from your daughter, there is no way she could be Mr. Jackson's daughter.
Let's discuss this over here.
Mom said, and I heard footsteps walk away from my bed. How could Mom be so calm about what the doctor said? Unless she knew. But why would Mom lie? Luckily, Patrick was able to get a blood donor and he had a successful surgery. Mom even told me that if it wasn't for me donating blood, that Patrick may not have made it. After Patrick came out of the hospital, there were a few times I wanted to come clean, but I didn't. I didn't want the burden of taking care of my baby brother or Mom if Patrick decided to walk out if I told him. If this little white lie is what it takes to keep my family together, then I'm willing to keep Mom's secret until I go to the grave.